DeMarcus. That's the only team I see offering huge money. Yes, maybe Cleveland.
The Lakers. The Cleveland doesn't have money.
Yeah, the Lakers. You're right. So, yeah, the Lakers, but what I would say there is the Lakers, I think, are really going to try to get LeBron and Paul George. And I still think that's like if I was a betting man, I would bet my money on that happening.
You're very confident that happening. I'm a little less confident, but still, I believe that that's definitely the most likely scenario. And in terms of Dallas, I think what I could see Dallas doing is offering a lot of money to a player like Nurkic or Julius Randle. They want a big guy, but I don't think DeMarcus Cousins fits their timeline, especially they have no reason to take on that risk with his injury. And even though Cousins is he's only 27, I believe, 27, 28. I don't see that fitting into their timeline when they have Dennis Smith Jr., who's young. They have the number 5 pick this year.
Yeah.
The number 5 pick will be even younger. That doesn't fit their timeline, and they have no reason to take on that.
And I think they have to, as long as Doncic is off the board by number 5, they're going to take a big guy. Unless they take a shot with Michael Porter, right? But that's another risk. Do you want to take a shot at Michael Porter and DeMarcus Cousins?
Michael Porter is a much bigger risk they should be willing to take just because of his age.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So you're right, and the only other team that could offer probably the team really most willing to offer the DeMarcus Cousins that type of salary, like a max salary, will be the Pelicans. Now, if they all of a sudden feel like you don't fit our need, we're going to let you go unless you agree to sign and trade, then yes, I don't see many teams. Most teams that have the money this offseason to spend will not be willing to spend it on DeMarcus Cousins. I know Hawks, Bulls have a lot of money to spend. Obviously the Lakers, but if the Lakers get James and George, they laugh at any.
But you would think, why would any of those teams want DeMarcus Cousins? Obviously the Hawks.
They don't. They
have a lot of. They have a bright future. Maybe that's a strong word, but
very strong word.
Some sort of a future.
Yes.
They have some talent. They have a chance of probably being able to take Doncic this year. I don't know if they will, but they have a chance of taking him. And then the Bulls looks like they're setting themselves up for next year's free agency. I don't think
the Bulls. If they take a risk on DeMarcus Cousins,
bad management. So if I heard they're taking DeMarcus Cousins, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't think they will.
I would be shocked if the Bulls. I don't. No matter how dumb they are, that front office is. I don't believe they're that dumb, but no matter how dumb they are, that would be catastrophic for them. And like you said, I think they've made it pretty clear that they're saving for next season. And that might even be too early, in my opinion, depending on how those players develop. That might be too early.
Yeah.
Because, it might not be too early just because of the fact that in 2 years, Dunn is going to be up for an extension. Now, all of a sudden, you have his cap hold, which will be much higher than it is next season. That would probably be it. But at the same time, you don't want that cap hold on you if you don't need it. You prefer to do it next season.
Can I ask an off-topic question? Can the Bulls trade Zach LaVine this year?
As a sign and trade.
They'd have to sign, so they can't do it during the draft.
They cannot do it during the draft, no.
Okay. All right, maybe let's move on to your last trade.
Okay, so my last trade, now I'm cheating a little bit, and we did not discuss this team earlier when we discussed our 4 teams that he's most likely to go to. The 5th team that he's most likely to go to is Philadelphia. Now, the reason why I saved this trade is because, yes, there's been a lot of discussion about Philly, a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors that the package Philly would be able to build around to a Kawhi Leonard trade would be Markelle Fultz, either Covington and Saric or both, and the number 10 pick. So in my trade scenario, I am trading away from the Philadelphia 76ers Markelle Fultz, Robert Covington, the number 10 pick. Now, I'm going to include 2 more players. Now, with this trade scenario, we'll get to those 2 players in a second, okay? So I would be trading Covington to the Spurs. Now, I would be trading Markelle Fultz and the number 10 pick to the Charlotte Hornets. I was about to call them the Bobcats. I don't even know. But the Charlotte Hornets, and in return, Kemba Walker would be going to the Spurs. Now, the Spurs would also be given, if I'm Philadelphia, I tell the Spurs this. All right, there is TJ McConnell, Rashawn Holmes, Justin Anderson, Furkman Korkmaz, Timothy Luwabu Cabaret, I believe, and the 26th pick. I tell the Spurs, 2 of those players are yours. You pick whichever 2 you want out of those 6 options. Take on Covington, take on Kemba Walker, take on any of those 2 players that you want, and we have a trade package here. Now, let me review this. First, with the Hornets, I don't think the Hornets get a better offer for Kemba Walker than the number 10 pick and Markelle Fultz. There's a lot of speculation that Cleveland might be willing to offer the number 8 pick and Jordan Clarkson. I'm sorry, you're falling back 2 picks, but you're getting Markelle Fultz, who has star potential. I know this season was extremely strange for Markelle Fultz, but when he came back, he proved a lot of things that he's very explosive, a very good passer, attacks the rim very well. I think his shot will go back to at least somewhere where it was. And once he starts, he missed a lot of layups, but once he starts making those layups, he just needs to build his confidence back up with his shot. I think he has a lot of potential still to be a great player. The number 10 pick is obviously what you want to do with it. And for Kemba Walker, I do not believe you're going to get anything close to that type of package. The Spurs get what they need. They get Kemba Walker and Robert Covington, who are win-now players but are still young. Now, they might not be as young as the Spurs hope to get in the package, but Kemba Walker is a borderline all-star. Robert Covington is a great replacement for Danny Green if he leaves. He could hit the 3. He could play defense, even though his playoff performance wasn't that great, but that was just that's a small sample size. He's proven to be a great 3-and-D player, which the Spurs need, and he's younger than Danny Green. Then with the other 2 players, they could essentially get what they want. They essentially get 2 more young players. I believe it's Timothy Luwabu Cabra, who has great potential. He fits the Spurs mold of a player they could develop. TJ McConnell is a great backup point guard. Rashawn Holmes is another big. What did I say? A great backup. He's a great backup point guard, I should say, or maybe a third-string point guard. But he's a good backup point guard, I'll say. Rashawn Holmes, who's another big, they could put in there. If they want the number 26 pick, sure, get that. And obviously, the Philadelphia in this scenario get Kawhi Leonard. And if they trade away Jared Bayless, they would still be able to fit LeBron James on that team, which is huge if they're able to pick up this offseason both Leonard, James, and keep Saric, which I think is another key here. Now, the Spurs might say, no, we need Saric. If you could get Leonard, you do it. Maybe instead of Covington, you take Sarge, you do it if you're the Sixers. What do you think?
Philadelphia does it right, no questions asked. Maybe they don't get LeBron. Maybe they get Paul George, right?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Great team. Probably better for their future. Better for Ben Simmons. Better for everyone, in my opinion. I don't see any reason why the Hornets would do that. I mean, go for it, right? You get Fultz. You get the number 10 pick, which I like in this year's draft. If I'm the Spurs, I am saying a big hell no to that deal. And I will explain why. If I am going to trade, and this is from my perspective, if I am going to trade to the 76ers, I want Markelle Fultz. I want Markelle Fultz because I've seen him play. I like his energy. I like his talent. His shot, working with Chip England, I would trust that in developing. And you know what? In college, he had a good shot. So if I'm the Spurs, yes, Kemba Walker is a good player, right?
Yes.
But I take this team. Can this team with Kemba Walker and Robert Covington, right? It's a decent lineup. But are they going to beat the Warriors now? Are they going to beat the Rockets? Where are they going to be in the future? Where is this team going to happen? I just don't see how this is setting up the Spurs longer than 5 years. Like I said, the window of winning championships right now is, to me, the way I see it, it's close, right? It's the Warriors. If the Lakers can do something, right? If the Rockets can make some changes, those are the teams.
There's a lot of growing teams with this, Pelicans, like you said.
Well, the Pelicans, again, without getting another player, and that's why I like my trade, because the only way they can get another player is if they sign and trade DeMarcus Cousins. Because I don't think DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis is a good tandem. I don't think that I actually started playing a lot better when DeMarcus Cousins got injured, and I don't think that was a fluke.
They did, but not with Mirotic there as well. That makes Cousins a little more expandable. And with Cousins, I mean, it just his status, his injury status is so uncertain. And the Pelicans, I don't know if the Pelicans could be willing to risk that.
Yeah, but they don't have any cap space, regardless if they sign Cousins or not. The only way they can get better is if they get Cousins and they can find a suitor for him.
Yes.
Okay. like again, I don't like that trade for the Spurs. I don't think they're getting enough in the long run. Maybe if you give the Spurs that pick and the Hornets just take Markel Fultz.
That would actually be very interesting.
Maybe that improves it, right? And I think also what you said. I'm going for Saric there too. I want Saric if I'm the Spurs.
Okay, and that's fair. Maybe because you're right. I mean, maybe instead of giving the Hornets the number 10 pick, you give it to the Spurs and you give the Hornets a number, something else. Maybe they exchange picks with the Spurs, where the Spurs give up what is the Spurs pick this year?
What about this though? Let's take a look at this.
Because the only reason why instead of giving the Spurs Markel Fultz, I gave the Spurs Kemba Walker is because I don't feel that the Spurs are a team that is willing to. I mean, obviously they'd be willing to do it, but I think they're more of a win now team where they feel that they must win now, and even though they know, I feel that they know they won't go far. They won't pass up. I shouldn't say they won't go far, but they won't pass up Houston or Golden State with this trade. It's a trade that it would be a Spurs type of trade where they're like, even though we might not be able to compete with those teams, we want to be in the playoffs. We want to win 50 to 55 games. We want to kind of show teams show the league that even though we may not be winning, we are still that model of consistency where we're going to keep winning 50, 55 games. And we just want to be known as a winning franchise on a continuous basis.
Maybe. I do think that this is probably one of the most interesting parts of this whole trade scenarios is to see what is the directions that Greg Popovich and R.C. Buford thinking long-term here, right? Because if they are, and this is maybe something we're going to discuss later on, if they are thinking long-term, maybe LaMarcus Aldridge becomes on the trading block, right? LaMarcus Aldridge was second All-NBA team last year. So maybe some teams will want him. I'm not saying that they will.
Theoretically, it would make the most sense. I mean, and that's what kind of bothers me with the NBA in general is that teams are unwilling to rebuild. Now, I know tanking is seen as such a negative in the league, but I personally, I enjoy the idea of tanking. Now, granted, I'm not involved with the business side of the sport. I mean, I know a lot about the business side, but I'm not involved in the terms that I'm not the one out there selling tickets and making money. So I understand that tanking, you do not sell tickets with tanking. You don't. But at the same time, you set yourself up for the future. So LaMarcus Aldridge does sell tickets. However, if you're the Spurs, and yes, let's say they do pull off a trade where they pick up Saric and Markel Fultz. That's a very weird combination to put alongside LaMarcus Aldridge. So theoretically, if I'm running the team, I put LaMarcus Aldridge on that trade block, and not only do I put him on the trade block, I make it a point to trade him and get some type of young assets with this deal. Not only for the fact that you're rebuilding at this point with Fultz and Saric, but because of the fact now with LaMarcus Aldridge, you're going to pick up a few more wins. You're going to pick up at least anywhere between 5 and 10 additional wins. Mm-hmm. Probably 10 is a little high, but anywhere between
there's a lot of bad teams. There's a lot of bad teams that LaMarcus Aldridge can beat by himself.
If I'm picking up Fultz, if I'm picking up Sarge, I want to lose for a season. I want to pick up another high draft pick to build around those guys. And granted, if Fultz plays really well, that rebuild will not take long. Sarge is developing, and he's already developing into a very solid starter in the league.
You actually want to give Sarge kind of a more, hey, take over the offense type role, because he's a fantastic passer.
You do.
People
I agree.
Don't see that because in Philly he doesn't get the ball, but he can run an offense pretty well. So if the Spurs take they're in my opinion, right, that's their best option right now. I'm with you on the tanking part. I think Philadelphia, which is the team that tanked, right, if you look at it, I think if you ask any Philadelphia fan, they would go back and do it again.
Yeah.
And the Philly, they weren't even that good at it. You get some of their draft picks.
I think they were good at
Noel, Jahlil Okafor. They made some big mistakes.
But that's how a rebuild works. I think most teams going into a rebuild know you're going to fail. Probably even fail more than you succeed. But with that success, you have to really hit, and that's what the Sixers did. They hit with Embiid, they hit with Simmons, they hit with Embiid, they hit with Saric, not to that same extent, and we don't know whether. I mean, I still think they will hit with Fultz. And even though you failed with a lot of those players. You failed with, like you said.
Well, they really failed that Fultz trade.
Oh, they failed that Fultz trade, but I still think it will be a success in terms of.
They gave him this year's Brooklyn pick, right?
They gave him next year's second